Hi guys, it's Sarah Dallal. I'm very, very happy to be here. Happy Bank Holiday Monday. I hope everyone's been enjoying one of the hottest Mays on record. That's what I read earlier today. But that is not one of our news stories today. So I don't think you guys would be interested in that anyway. I think you guys can do the observations yourself of how hot it's been today. I've certainly been out in the sun a little bit too much for my liking, and I am knackered as a result, which is so insane. But luckily, I have a whole week off so I can recover. Anyway, I'm really, really honoured to be joined by an incredible guest. Tonight, I'm joined by India Willoughby. Hello, India. How are you?
Hello, Sarah. I'm fine, thank you. The only bad thing about today, I know it's been blistering hot for everybody, and what have you, but I seem to have swallowed loads of pollen. You know when you get pollen in your actual throat. So,
Yeah.
so, so if I do two things before we get underway. If I start coughing, it's not because I'm a heavy smoker. It's because of the pollen. And if my camera is wobbling, the other thing is my camera stand that is normally rock steady, it's just not working. Maybe it's melted in the heat. I don't know. But I just
Maybe.
wanted to let everybody know those two things: the cough, pollen, shaky camera. It's down to the broken stand.
Well, a cough and a no stand will not be hurdles
Told
for you,
you.
India. So I'm really, really excited to have you. But coming up on tonight's show, um, we have the strikes that have taken place in Lebanon, and we are also going to be unpacking how the EHRC is making trans lives so much more impossible. But just a reminder, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. And you can visit turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to become a patron. You've got everything that you need on there, really. So, and you can also buy merch. Believe it or not, I've actually just received a Turn Left t-shirt after being a Turn Left member for as long as I have. Yeah, we do merch. India's in my ear. Yeah, we do. So plug.
Check it out. Seriously, I've got this thing for left wing t-shirts at the moment.
Love it.
I'll quickly show you mine. Can you see it there?
Babes against, what was it? What did it say?
Bitches, I think.
Oh, bitches. I fucking love
But
it.
it's from another good organization, the Good Law Project.
Nice.
So I'm sure you won't mind me giving them a little
Of course not.
plug. But I'm
Yeah,
going to
I'd
check
love
your
that.
stuff out as well.
Please do. Please do. I'm, yeah, very, very happy to have plugged that. And also, India's just going to buy it. So if she's going to buy it, you guys are going to buy it too. But yes, so on to our first story. Today, shocking footage has emerged from southern Lebanon. Let's have a look and then we'll kind of unpack it after. But just a massive pre-warning, this video is incredibly upsetting.
These are now a daily ritual in Lebanon, a funeral cortege winding through streets battered by Israeli bombs which haven't stopped falling despite a ceasefire deal. Those being mourned are increasingly medics, killed as they help those caught up in the attacks. The Lebanese government says they're being deliberately targeted. They call them double taps, and this one was caught on camera. The video we're going to show you is shocking and begins after the medics arrive at the first attack. They're in neon jackets calling the second ambulance in after a father and his young daughter have been hit. As the crew arrives, there's another bomb.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
When slowed down, you can see the bomb hitting the front of the ambulance. The moment of impact is captured by a second camera inside the arriving ambulance. The two-man crew rushing to help their colleagues and those injured on the road somehow escaped with their lives. But now they too are wounded. All three of their colleagues outside on the street were killed, as well as the father, his young child, and a civilian who'd stopped to help.
So obviously really fucking insane, fucking wild. What's deeply concerning is this pattern of strikes in which medical workers, paramedics and emergency responders have repeatedly been killed and harmed while performing their duties that are explicitly protected under international humanitarian law. According to reporting from Reuters and corroborated by the Lebanese Health Ministry, it is said that 6 Lebanese paramedics were killed in 2 Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon in the span of 24 hours. Lebanon's health ministry said on Friday, condemning the attacks as violations of international law. According to the ministry, an Israeli strike overnight Thursday into Friday in the southern Lebanese town of Hanoué killed 4 paramedics from the Islamic Health Association. On Friday morning, an Israeli strike killed 2 medics from Al Risala Scouts Association in Der Kanun and Nahir. Hope I'm not butchering that. And more broadly, Lebanese health authorities have recorded over 120 medical workers killed since the escalation of hostilities resumed in March, alongside repeated reports of ambulances being struck during active rescue operations and hospitals sustaining damage that has taken facilities partially or fully out of service. And then just to add another layer to how disgusting this is, one of the most disturbing elements being reported is the use of what is described as a quote unquote double tap strike, a sequence in which an initial explosion is followed by a second strike after paramedics or civilians arrive at the scene. Double tap strike, like really sit with that. It's wild. In documented cases in Lebanon, including incidents reported by The Guardian and other outlets, ambulances responding to wounded civilians have themselves been struck shortly after arrival, with medics amongst the casualties. I don't want anyone to be under any sort of delusion here either, but where else have we seen this take place? By Israel. And it's Gaza. We've seen this happen time and time again. UN agencies, journalists, and medical organisations have documented repeated strikes on or around hospitals, ambulances, and medical personnel during Israel's ongoing military operations. Last year, Israeli forces fired over 900 bullets to kill Gaza medics in 2025. The report released on Monday by independent research agency, this was an article released in 2025, by the way. The report released on Monday by independent research agency Forensic Architecture and audio investigation group Earshot offers the most detailed reconstruction to date of the massacre in Tal al-Sultan, a neighborhood west of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip. On March 23rd, 2025, 15 aid workers were killed in the attack, including paramedics from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, firefighters from the Palestinian Civil Defense, and a staff member of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees. The slain aid workers were then buried along with their vehicles. On top of this, at the time this was all happening, Palestinian survivors were saying this: "I heard them take their last breath." So a survivor called Manthur Abid, who was 27 at the time, recounts the Gaza paramedic killings at the time and was in the first ambulance on the scene of an airstrike near Rafah when Israeli soldiers opened fire. Israel, as we know, has consistently stated in both Gaza and Lebanon that it strikes to target Hezbollah or Hamas infrastructure embedded within civilian areas. The reason why they're going for the hospitals is because they have underground tunnels and all this sort of stuff. And that steps are taken to minimize civilian harm. But what civilian harm are you trying to minimize when you are literally trying to attack people who are trying to help people who are being harmed by you? However, as we know, humanitarian organisations alongside Lebanese and Palestinian health authorities argue that the frequency and nature of these incidents raise serious questions about how those protections are being applied in practice. And so the question becomes not just what happened in any one strike, but what it means when ambulance crews, doctors and rescue teams, those meant to be the most protected in war, are repeatedly found inside the blast radius. And I say should be protected in war, everyone should be protected. No one should be subjected to war. Everyone should be protected. But India, I just want to bring you in. Are we surprised that Israel has this habit of targeting medical professionals again?
No, absolutely not. And the double tap, that is just a truly despicable, sick thing to do. It's not actually the first strike that is the main thing. In a way, it's almost like in golf, putting the ball on the tee before you really hit it. And the objection, the intent rather, of a double strike is to draw people out and key personnel, because obviously paramedics are always valuable members of a society because of the work that they do. But in those situations, those conditions, that value is infinitely more, and they're taking them out. And I don't know, there comes a stage where it is also monstrous what Israel has done in Gaza, and now they're carrying on elsewhere. And I was reading today that already they've taken in Lebanon, they've taken 5% of Lebanon's landmass. Now, to put that in the context of the UK, that is the equivalent of taking Northern Ireland out of the UK. And is there a big international fuss about it? Really? Again, nothing, as we've seen with Gaza and what's been happening to the Palestinians. It's not getting either the coverage that it warrants or the prominence and the tone that it deserves. So yeah, despicable, pure evil.
Mm. And like I'm really really sick and tired of seeing the onslaught that's being conducted by the Israeli state and by the IDF. Like it is utterly insane.
Yeah.
And I will say this like completely I don't know, Callum might be in my ear in a second, but my personal opinion, I have to preface this, I really do believe that the IDF are just a bunch of terrorists. Like they are terrorizing the lives of those in neighboring
Without a shadow of
countries.
a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, and like
But,
all
but
because
I think
there's
it comes from, there's a big problem within Israel, and it starts at a young age. There's no excuse for what's happened over the last couple of years. But, some of these people, it's the old thing about, everyone, we're not born Nazis or we're not born racists or anything like that when we're babies. We're actually taught that. And that is what is going on in Israel. It's documented. Jewish people have told us that when they were growing up, they were taught in school in children's storybooks, that these bad people, the Arabs, were the monsters that were going to come and get them. And if that is drilled into you from the point where you can comprehend words and stories, and that demographic is always the monster, then you can see how people become as they are. So, as I say, not excusing what's happened over the last couple of years, but in some ways, if you wanted to give any generosity, there will be people that have grown up in Israel that are fighting for the IDF that are actually, radicalized. They didn't have to be that way. And at the end of the day, that's what's got to change. Something has got to change within Israel, where the whole system of demonization of Palestinians and Arabs stops.
completely agree with you, like really great point. And I think my other question is, because we always hear like this goes against international law, like this goes against international humanitarian law, but like we're seeing Israel, they don't give a fuck about humanitarian law, they give a fuck about international law. And what should be neutral spaces are appearing to be repeatedly compromised across multiple conflict zones. So what does it tell us about the current state of international humanitarian law if it's so easy to just overstep that boundary and still literally throw double tap bombs at ambulances? What does it say about that?
Yeah, well, international law is completely broken down, and obviously that is down to Donald Trump riding roughshod over all, what we have grown to know to be diplomacy, tact, and general civility. Really, and unfortunately, I think there's a slight change now, but unfortunately, the tactic that was adopted by the middle countries, if you like, such as ourselves and Germany, etc., instead of standing up to Donald Trump, we've tried to appease him, and I think throughout Donald Trump's life, whether it's in business or during his time as president, if you show weakness or if you show submissiveness, he's just going to stamp on you and carry on. So yeah, I think the rules as we knew them, they've completely gone, and the only thing that can happen now is that we start making new rules, new alliances, and we've got to cut America out, unfortunately. They're not our ally.
They are not. They haven't been for a while. And I
Yeah.
think for as long as Trump is in office, Trump does what Trump wants to do for Trump's interests.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want Britain to be this little poodle for America, particularly when Trump is a war crimes enthusiast and he will go hand in hand with people that can profit off of the suffering of civilians. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I do want to get on to the next story though. But before we do, it's 2026 and we really want this year to be big for Turn Left. We want to be more ambitious than last year and to really put ourselves on the map. We would like, please and thank you, 2026 to be the year where we can have a studio and for our contributors to be paid for the work that we do. As you guys know, we do this alongside our full-time job. So yeah, that would be great. Your support as well is definitely recognised over the years and has been amazing. And I think we're ready to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations. So if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon. Or there is another link for a one-time contribution. And as you know, you can also become a YouTube member for just 99p. But I want to give this part of the show the time that it deserves. So last week, the UK government's independent equality watchdog, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, finally released its guidance for service providers on single-sex service provision and the Equalities Act. Last year, transphobic group For Women Scotland, quote unquote, won a Supreme Court case that ruled that, quote unquote, sex under the 2010 Equalities Act refers only to biological birth sex, effectively legalising segregation of transgender men and women from their respective spaces. In response, the Turn Left team marched with tens of thousands of people through central London protesting the decision. It feels good to remember that there is an axis of resistance against transphobia. But since that day, service providers have been awaiting EHRC guidance on how to properly navigate the laws so that they don't end up being sued. The complication for the transphobes is that gender reassignment is still a protected characteristic in itself under the Equality Act. So discrimination against trans people is still very much a violation of the Equality Act. So I hope they bloody know that. Before we go on to that, though, we should talk about the EHRC. The EHRC is not a neutral institution and has been infested with transphobia and bigotry for many years now. In 2021, the chair of the EHRC, Baroness Faulkner, backed Mary Forstater and stated that cis women should be able to challenge transgender identity without facing stigmatisation or repercussions. Following this, employees of the EHRC began quitting en masse. Multiple former employees described the EHRC as anti-LGBT and an enemy of human rights. The consortium of LGBT voluntary and community organisations, which include Stonewall, Transactual and Mermaids, among many other groups, signed an open letter condemning the EHRC around the same time. Now, you might be thinking, well, surely it's unfair to describe them as anti-LGBT when it's specifically transgender people they seem to be targeting. But the whistleblower's view of the EHRC was vindicated this week. The new chair of the EHRC for Scotland is Alistair Henderson, who has links to anti-abortion groups and groups opposed to gay marriage. Sit with that for a sec, guys. Henderson was also liking and sharing posts critical of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 and claiming that the terms misogynist and homophobe were ideological propaganda terms. The Good Law Project noted that between 2016 and 2021, Henderson was also the director of the Lawyers Christian Fellowship, which was partnered with Alliance Defending Freedom, a US Christian right group that was central in overturning abortion rights in the US. And Henderson won a legal case funded by another dark money Christian right group from overseas, in which the former journalist David Capinnail says he won damages plus a legal bill which could be over 250 grand. Capinnail sued the Lib Dems in 2024, claiming that the party had discriminated for deselecting him as an electoral candidate because of his protected Christian beliefs. The Liberal Democrats argued that Capinnail had not told them about his opposition to abortion and same-sex marriage or his previous membership of a Christian right political party, but admitted last month that they had breached his human Right. The case was funded by Citizen Go, a global dark money pressure group with links to the far right, which campaigns against abortion and LGBTQ plus rights around the world. So, not just ties to anti-trans groups, but groups that oppose gay marriage, abortion rights, racial equality, and gender equality too. Like, all of these things do intersect, by the way, guys, just to let you know. It's utterly insane to think that currently, now in the 21st century, we're still having conversations about the legitimacy of having of the lives of trans people currently, and that we have people like, what was his name? Capinale. What was his name? Capindale? Can't remember his name, but it's not even relevant. It's not even worth knowing. Not worth knowing his name. I've just read it 2 seconds ago. I don't remember his name. Who are literally calling it ideological propaganda terms when we're trying to root for the lives and livelihoods and the well-being and the safety of trans people, of black and brown people, of disabled people, of people who need abortions, fundamental human rights, by the way. I think we're still having these boring conversations about it. People shadowboxing potential harm and not actually interrogating the lack of safety provisions put in place for trans people. I can go on about this a lot, but I'm gonna chill for a second because I want to bring India in. But the problems with transphobia in the EHRC don't begin and end with Henderson and Faulkner, as the Good Law Project notes. Emails leaked to Vice in 2022 showed Henderson suggested the EHRC intervene in the case of Maya Forstater, which it did. Forstater went on to co-found influential British anti-trans group Sex Matters. Last year, Freedom of Information requests uncovered the extent of EHRC's relationship with anti-trans lobbyists, including Sex Matters, from offering fully private policy meetings to incorporating their suggestions into draft guidance verbatim. So the EHRC, a body that's supposed to be rooted in human rights, by the way, supposedly, and I use that very, very loosely, was having private meetings with transphobic groups and drafting their ideas into the guidance verbatim. Make it make sense, guys. The EHRC is doing that. India, there's more to this story that we'll unpack in a second, but I want to get to your reaction. Your reactions to all of this about the EHRC first. How do you feel about the government's official equalities watchdog having such obvious problems with transphobia and connections to far-right organisations?
Well, it's an absolute joke. And this all goes back to the Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings day, when they said that they wanted to recruit weirdos to break the system and break the norms, as it were. And what happened was that they decided to wage war on woke. And how they were going to do that was by injecting people whose personal views were diametrically opposed to the function of that organization. So, another example would be the Charity Commission. All of a sudden, the Charity Commission, which had only granted official charity status, which, by the way, is extremely valuable to obviously good causes, ended up granting charity status to the aforementioned Sex Matters, a very obvious trans hate group, and the LGB Alliance, another trans hate front that preposterously sets itself up as an LGBT an LGB rights organization. Yet for some reason, all they talk about is trans people. They oppose conversion therapy, yet they oppose conversion therapy. They oppose gay marriage. At one stage, they wanted gay venues to close during the monkeypox virus spread, with the insinuation that it was all the fault of gay men. So does that sound like a gay rights organization? No. And then other organizations, they did it at the BBC, obviously famously with the likes of Robbie Gibb, making the BBC more right-wing. And at the EHRC, which impacts trans lives, they injected Baroness Faulkner, another woman called Akua Reindorf, who is a gender critical lesbian. And between them, as you touched on in your summary there, for the last few years, they've been in cahoots, essentially, with all kinds of people in the establishment, within the media. And fast forward to the UK Supreme court hearing. 2 cases have been heard previously. In both of those, they were told, you've lost. Trans women are women. That's an established fact already in law. Case closed. But because they have J.K. Rowling's funds behind them and other religious right organisations donating as well, they were able to take their case to the highest court in the land, the UK Supreme Court. So before that hearing was heard, in a normal world, everyone was really confident that they're just throwing the money away. They've already lost 2 cases. It's there in black and white that under the Gender Recognition Act, trans women are women. They're wasting the money. But come court day, trans people are banned from speaking in the court when trans rights are on the line. And the only people that the judge is listening to, are gender criticals. And he's getting briefings from the EHRC led by Baroness Faulkner. So is it any shock, really, what happened? Absolutely disgusting. It's one of the biggest travesties, I think, in British legal history. You know, the UK has a long history, actually, of these types of scandals. But when you think of the type of people involved here, from the very top to the very bottom, and the way that trans people have been monstered over the last 8 years now, with negative stories every single day for 8 years. And I'm not exaggerating when I say every single day. It's been a literal blitzkrieg. And we've lost everything. They've destroyed trans rights in this country and set us back probably 50 years now, which is disgusting. That's how long it's probably going to take us to get things back to normal. Unfortunately for us, not enough people stood up for us. Either they were scared of the gender criticals because they are poison and toxic. Anyone who's had the unfortunate pleasure of crossing their path will know just how vicious they can be. So they're quite intimidating people to take on. But now they're saying that trans people never had these rights and that all we are doing is clarifying the law. Well, let me just explain what's going on here. They don't want to be seen to the public as having stripped a minority of rights, because that is what happened. And judges in this country do not make the law. They enforce the law, but they don't make the law. Making the law is the job of Parliament. So in 2004, the UK was taken to the European Court of Human Rights by a woman called Goodwin, appropriately enough, the surname, a trans lady who said, look, this is crazy. I live in the UK and they're not recognizing me fully as a woman. Went to Europe. Europe says, yeah, this isn't on. It's not how we do things in Europe. It's not the way of the modern world. UK, get your act together. So on the back of that, 2004, Tony Blair passed the Gender Recognition Act, which states very clearly that when you transition and get a gender recognition certificate, you effectively become, for all intents and purposes, the sex that you have transitioned to. And you should be treated fully as that sex. Fully. The word's there in black and white. So that's 2004. 6 years on, the Equality Act is written under Gordon Brown, which included trans women. But we're now expected to believe that when the Equalities Act in 2010 was written and passed by Gordon Brown was actually passing a bathroom bill, a really strict legal document that banned trans women from changing rooms, toilets, joining the women's institutes, trans girls from joining the Girl Guides. And for 15 years, even though this vicious bathroom bill had been passed by Gordon Brown, nobody noticed. 15 years passed, Not a peep. It beggars belief. Clearly, the Equality Act was not passed by Labour with the intent to ban trans people and make their lives impossible.
And I'm going to unpack. I will unpack this with you after. That was so well said, and I think what the EHRC functions as today should concern anyone who actually cares about the
I
rights
just
of
can
human
I. There
beings.
was one important thing
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
mention here, just before I forget, because there is so much that's happened that sometimes you forget certain things. So straight after the gender criticals stripped the trans community of our long-standing rights, guess who posed with Sex Matters outside the court with a celebratory caption for Twitter? Kishwa Faulkner, the head of the EHRC, the supposedly independent body, posing with the trans hate group with a big smile, all hugs. What a great day. We've taken away trans rights. That's how confident they are now.
It's embarrassing. Like an institution, a body that was created to defend vulnerable people from discrimination, yet trans people are being omitted from the conversation, and it's just exclusionary rhetoric every single time. So we'll unpack that in a second as well. But I just the second part of the story I'll get to now, and then India, I want to get your insight as well. But that was so well said. Thank you. So this week, the EHRC published its statutory guidance on the Equalities Act 2010 for services, public functions and associations. This is the guidance that businesses and services will use to determine how to appropriately segregate services without violating the law. And if you want the TLDR, it's a mess. This was supposed to help clarify the situation for businesses, but it actually makes things so much more complex and cloudy. This is what happens when you interpret law for transphobic pressure groups rather than a practical understanding that recognises the existence of trans people. Because the interpretation that sex can only refer to biological birth sex, the guidance now struggles to balance segregating services on the basis of biological sex while still protecting gender reassignment as a protected characteristic. It is an utter calamity that suggests businesses should attempt to provide quote unquote third spaces for trans people. As the Good Law Project puts in their summary, forcing trans people to use third spaces creates stigma and risks outing them. A trans woman who goes to the pub with the rest of her female friend group would have to explain why she cannot go into the women's toilets with them. In practice, third services or spaces are often insufficient, denying trans people access to vital services and pushing them out of public life. This will cause serious harm. This exclusionary approach impacts other groups too. Cis women will face increased gender policing and harassment when accessing gendered spaces and services, insisting that trans people use already insufficient accessible toilets is also likely to negatively affect disabled people. The ridiculousness of making transgender men use the women's toilets really came to force when transgender men started posting pictures of themselves going into women's toilets. One Twitter user posted these pictures with the caption, "Been too long anyways, women's are much nicer. See you in there, ladies." And the TERFs gave their usual response, tearing into him about how they could tell he was female because of his soft feminine jawline, his child-bearing hips, one of them said, and his 5-foot stature. The only problem, the account had photoshopped an image of right-wing commentator Darren Grimes and pretended that it was them. Darren Grimes is male, and the TERFs were declaring that he must be female, blissfully unaware of how stupid they were making themselves look. TERFs are always saying that we can't let trans women into loos because male predators will pretend to be trans women to be allowed into women's loos. Like, they use that rhetoric all the time. I used to have so many conversations with these twats on the internet, and I just stopped because I was like, what the fuck is the point? When you're trying to villainize trans women in the way that you are, you're literally shadowboxing potential harm. What about the trans women that are actually in harm's way? Like, make it make sense. But if TERFs can't tell that Darren Grimes isn't female, then they prove that any male predator could just pretend to be a trans man and get into the women's loos. But again, just on a side note, there is, like, I don't know why people think that predators are this boogeyman that you're going to find in the alley, when actually notoriously the boogeyman tends to be someone that lives in your home with you, like someone who actually knows you will probably cause you more harm. I'm really, I'll bring India in a second, but it's really, really frustrating. I just can't wait to hear what India's got to say about this. But the section in the EHRC guidance itself is utterly bizarre, because it begins by saying that allowing trans people into single-sex spaces like women's loos would mean that they were no longer single-sex, and that would be unlawful discrimination against men. Yes, you can't allow trans women into women's toilets because it would be discrimination against cis men. What do you even say at this point? So what about if they use the loos associated with their birth sex? Well, the guidance says that might be the wrong answer too. Section 13.146 to 13.147 of the guidance reads the following. A trans man might be excluded from the women-only service if the service provider decides that, because he presents as a man, other service users could reasonably object to this presence, and excluding him in a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. A legitimate aim for excluding a trans person from a separate or single-sex service for their own sex might be to prevent discomfort or distress for other service users. So trans people can legally be excluded from both the women and the men's loos. It's just about driving trans people out of society. It doesn't help women's safety. All it does is make life hell for trans people. And I don't know how people can't fucking get that. If you're a trans woman, you can no longer go out with your friends, because any bar you enter could stop you from using their toilets, even if you choose to put yourself at risk by using the toilets for your birth sex. And not just toilets or changing rooms, sport clubs, NHS wards, and a whole range of services will be affected. All it takes is one insecure, delinquent individual who thinks you look a bit too masculine or feminine. You don't even have to be trans. Anyone could be told to get out because they don't conform enough. But if the service provider isn't sensitive and discreet enough when discriminating against trans people, it could also be discrimination. The guidance says, to comply with Article 8 of the ECHR, a service provider must be able to objectively justify asking an individual about their sex. A request for information about sex should only be made where it is proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. Furthermore, a request for information about sex which is not proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim could also amount to unlawful indirect gender reassignment discrimination. Discrimination or harassment could occur if, for example, individuals are asked about their sex in a way that requires them to disclose their information in public, or if the language or manner of a request is rude, combative, or offensive. So the guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission says that you can't challenge someone on the basis of your own bigotry, but Talk TV's Kevin Sullivan didn't seem to understand that Labour weren't just making that interpretation up.
So the Equality Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, finally, clearly kicking and screaming, she finally performs her legal obligation by announcing that it will now be illegal for biological males to go into and use ladies' loos or invade women's safe spaces. The reason she's had to do this is because it's a ruling from the Supreme Court. She took an inordinate amount of time to actually perform her legal duty and bring that into play, and then immediately announces, yeah, but if, okay, they're banned, but if a man, a biological male does go into a women's loo, you can't challenge them. We can't challenge them. Well, so what she's saying is, if some bozo with a beard wearing a dress goes into a ladies' loo, you, for example, Sarah, will not be able to go over to him and say, excuse me, this is the ladies, can you get out? This is ridiculous.
Firstly, that is actually a really distressing video, and I should have said that it was distressing before having us watch it. It's so distressing to even watch that people literally speak like this on TV. It's heartbreaking. Labour are really allowing this to happen to try to harm these people, but they can pander all they like. The transphobes don't care. You can give them everything they want and they'll still pretend that you were dragged kicking and screaming and you're secretly pro-transgender, and they fully don't know what the law says. They don't understand that the EHRC is independent of the government. In fact, they don't even know who the government, they don't even know who the EHRC are. Here is part of Sarah Pochin's response to Kevin O'Sullivan.
All this government has done is said, well, yes, we will support now the European Convention of Human Rights guidance on how to implement the Supreme Court ruling, but you cannot challenge anyone, as you say. So, in fact, absolutely nothing has changed. So you're right.
Sarah has got a few things to sort out. Obviously, her knowledge on things and her fucking internet. Like, so this guidance comes from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, not the European Convention of Human Rights. These people know so little about this that they're confusing the EHRC for the ECHR, and someone like Sarah Pochin, who happens to be in Parliament, should be able to know the difference. You'd think so. She also seems to think that Bridget Phillipson is contradicting the EHRC's code of practice when she says don't confront people as a client on the service. No, that's what the EHRC code of practice says. And if politicians can't understand this, many service providers won't either. So this isn't actually helpful to service providers. They're in a minefield of potential lawsuits. So what is the correct place for a trans person to be? Well, the guidance recommends that they use the disabled toilets and unisex toilets. So disabled people have to share their already limited toilet access with another group of people because TERFs might be uncomfortable. Not many places will have specific unisex toilets, and transgender people shouldn't be socially isolated by being driven from those spaces. Like past segregationists, they're demanding segregation, knowing that the services will not be provided equally to cis and trans people. India. Oh my God, I've spoken, can't even speak. I've spoken so much, I want to get your take. What do you think of the new EHRC guidance? How is it likely to affect trans people in the UK?
Well, it's not going to affect me in any way because I'm carrying on leading my life as normal. I am a woman, I'm a biological woman, and I'm legally recognised as a woman thanks to the Gender Recognition Act. So, you know, I work for myself, I choose where I go. I'm not subject to rules in an office or a shop or any other kind of workplace. And those are the people that I feel really sorry for. I mean, you talked about the analogy of a group of girlfriends going to a club and one of them is trans, and you know, when we go to the toilet everyone goes in at the same time, but in that scenario now one gets separated off and goes in a separate toilet. That's disgusting. It's completely unfair. And in a workplace, you're going to have scenarios now where good, decent women who happen to be trans and have held down a job for maybe 10 or 20 years, they have a group of friends in the office, a group of female friends, and they're going to go into work and the boss is going to say, can I just have a quick word, Susan? I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to start treating you as a man. Who thinks that is right? I mean, do they expect trans people not to develop mental health problems if we're going to be shamed and humiliated in that way? Trans people are going to leave, and some trans people, sadly, because of these rules, are going to kill themselves. And trans suicides are already around the region of 30 to 40% of trans people at some stage contemplate suicide because of the exclusion, the isolation, the sheer frustration of just being allowed to live a normal life. Now, before these rules came into place, due to the non-stop anti-trans campaign that the extremely wealthy gender critical movement have been able to wage on us, plus their impeccable connections in media at the BBC and at the Times, etc. Due to all that noise, a survey last year found that 70% of UK employers would now think twice about taking on a trans member of staff. Nothing to do with the trans member of staff's capability, purely down to the toxicity that surrounds the subject and the possibility that somebody gender critical could end up suing them. Now, have I lost my mind or something? Surely the law should be on the side of the victims and not the bullies. And what's happened here in the UK is that we've somehow found ourselves in a situation where the bullies, the TERFs, the people who are going out actively tormenting and harassing and teasing vulnerable trans people every day of their life, They're the ones with the police and the courts and the judges on their side. And the victim that's curled up in a ball, essentially saying, please stop kicking me, is told, I'm sorry, you've got nothing. And that comes down to the other bizarre thing about this long story now, that gender critical is a protected belief. Let me ask you, if so, there was something called black critical, we would understand what that meant. If there was something called gay critical, we would know what type of person that was. Those kind of things would not get protected in law, but gender critical is. So that is something that needs to change. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a massive scandal. It's up there on a level with the post office. When you look at all the corruption that's gone on, the way that trans people have been suppressed and denied a voice, the court decisions, the inside briefings that have taken place without us. And they've stripped us of everything. And in the real world, this strips down. And the consequences in the real world are that trans people become so isolated, they end up killing themselves. So that could be like a teenager, maybe. So not only have they lost their life, obviously the family are in grief for something completely unnecessary, because these, sorry, I'm going to swear, these fuckers just get a kick and they revel in it. They really, really enjoy it. They thrive on the cruelty and the humiliation. They're mean girls. They can't let go. And there is something psychopathic about many of them, actually. They are totally cold, totally empathy free. And the other thing I want to say is, we're hearing a lot of talk here about lots of complicated solutions and scenarios. Why not just do the simple thing? Recognize what it says in the Gender Recognition Act, that trans women are women. That is the norm now across the whole of the Western world, except for one other country, Trump, America. There are only 3 things you ever need to know about trans people. 1, there has never been a trans crime wave. 2, there has never been an epidemic of predators frocking up to go into public toilets to attack women, utterly ludicrous. And there has never been a trans sports person dominate any sport at any level anywhere in the world. You tell me who the greatest cis athlete is. I would say probably Muhammad Ali, and for women it's ironically Martina Navratilova. But who's the greatest trans athlete? We were in professional sport for 50 years. You wouldn't be able to name.
You wouldn't be able to name one.
Because there aren't any.
Exactly.
There simply aren't any. I'll give you another little fact here. Since 2004, when the Gender Recognition Act was passed in the UK, coincidentally, that was the first year that the Olympics allowed trans people to compete. Now, between 2004 and where we are now, just about to go into another Olympics, there have been a total of 80,000 Olympians. Can you tell me how many of those have been trans?
You couldn't.
2.
Yeah, you couldn't. You can't.
One came last.
Yeah.
And the other was absolutely nowhere in the field. So that this myth of trans people dominating sport, everything you hear.
Oh.
Trans people winning the world or a threat to anyone. It is literally pure hysteria and made up.
It is. It is all hysteria. And we need to also be mindful of the fact that this is something that will impact trans women way more because of how...
No, you mean cis women? It's going to impact cis women more.
Well, true. Absolutely. Like, I think just women as a whole. Like, women as a whole. Like, because the misogyny already forms the fabrics of society. And then they are these so-called gender criticals, these so-called feminists that they like to call themselves, who hide behind the guise of feminism, by the way, but actually are nowhere
Yeah.
near about fighting for women's rights, because they can't even recognize that trans people's lives exist, so they
Yeah.
don't actually deserve to be in the conversation with us. But them failing to recognize that misogyny is something that impacts every single woman who does not conform to what they believe the norm to be.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Serena Williams, we've seen it with Casa Semenya, we saw it with Iman
Absolutely.
Khalif, who they are so obsessed with trying to find something that just isn't woman-like,
Yeah.
what they believe to be woman-like, and say, yeah, I fucking think they're trans. I think they're
Well,
trans.
well, they've actually there have been other surveys done as well that when it comes to trans discrimination and how it kind of bleeds into the cis population of women, it tends to be black and ethnic women who fall foul, because obviously, you just mentioned Serena and Venus Williams there. Nasty people would say, well, a woman can't get as well developed and as muscular as that. They must be a man. So in those cases now, you're going to end up with them being dragged off and subjected to humiliating sex tests, which don't even work. They were discontinued in the 70s because what happened was they were giving sex tests to women in the Olympics, and some women who weren't trans were finding out, oh my God, my chromosomes are actually kind of male. They're not what they're supposed to be. They didn't know. Because the thing is, again, this is why it's such a complex story, but it's talked about by morons and total ignoramuses,
this
as
is
we've just seen on
it.
Talk TV. This nonsense that it's XX or XYs. Well, I'm sorry, chromosomes are only one of the factors that determine your sex. There is a percentage of the population walking around right now who are not trans, completely oblivious to the fact they have the wrong hormones, because there are other factors going on that dictate what sexuality. Anyway, it is complete, confusion. It's like a dust cloud, and it's a dust cloud that they have created. It's a really simple fact. Trans people have always existed. There's medical proof out there that trans people are born with a brain that naturally is developed in a way that is more in line with the sex that they instinctively identify with. So that's the biological component. You can't change your brain. You can only change your body. You can bring it into line. And that has been the way that the medical profession has treated us over the years. It brings happiness. We were not complaining. We were fine. All of these people, they are Christian, religious, right wing. And as you touched on there, Sarah, the fact is they've gone for trans people first because, if you like, we were the kind of low-hanging fruit and not enough people knew our background, so we were very easy to demonize and monster. But if you think that they're going to just shut up shop once they're done with us, they're going to move on to gay people. Next will be surrogacy. It will be gay marriage. Then it's going to be abortion. And it's just going to go on and on and on. They are trad-wide fantastics. Gender criticals are not women's rights campaigners.
Put them in the bin tenfold. You're so right. If it's not, this is what we need to understand, that today it's trans people, tomorrow it will literally be you. It will be you. They will come for you. Like, they will come for any person that they see as vulnerable, and then they will strip the things that they want to take from them. I have one last question, and I'll take us to the comments, India, but you pointed to something really, really like fundamental, which is the people who are carrying this conversation. What does it say that Sarah Pochen, for example, who I absolutely despise, I hate that we share the same name, because I actually think I'm very better. She's so fucking thick. She didn't even know that this guidance wasn't issued by the ECHR, but the EHRC. Does that tell us a lot about how little people actually understand this whole topic?
Yeah, I don't think people like her have the mental capacity to understand a subject such as trans. I think you can see with somebody like Sarah Pochen, this is a kind of a fame trip for her. And she's somebody who would never have been in the spotlight. She's got no talent, and her only thing that's going for her is that she lives in the age of hate,
Yep.
where being nasty and cruel is rewarded both in financial terms and in job opportunities in the media. So for her, it's a game. She's somebody like her. She's no interest whatsoever in actually taking time out to learn about the subject. And God forbid that she would approach something with an open mind, with the possibility of, she's not clever enough. These people,
No.
at best, they've got CSE woodwork. You know, this is, and they're running the country now, though.
Facts. I mean, let's go to the comments, India, because I'm sure that people have got a lot to say. And let's bring our producer in. He just said, bear with him because he's sorting something out.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
get the cough out.
I need to have a drink.
Have a drink, India.
Oh, my
honestly, sorry.
God.
I put you on the spot so much today.
I'm going to have a little wander in the bedroom, so you're probably going to see my just legs and a bit of movement there. While there's
I
my
don't mind
bottle.
at all.
Yes, let me see. I think I can.
Thank you.
Is that better?
That's much better. Hi, everybody. I think I'm live now.
Hello. Hello.
Sorry, my internet keeps going.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It was making your face really, really, really big on the screen when I was going to go to the comments. So I just thought if we do it this way, it will.
I don't want to scare anybody.
We can see you properly now. Really, really interesting and just great conversations as always. It's been fascinating listening to both of you talking about this. Actually, we'll get back into this in a moment. I'm just going to go through the super chats first, and then we'll get back to discussing the stories. Michael's gifted 1 turn left membership. Thank you for that one, Michael. Layla's sent a £5 super chat. Thank you for that, and said India follows a total nobody like me on Twitter, so it's wonderful to see her. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you, Layla, for joining us as well. 22 Oreos has sent £2.
Thanks.
You run? What Forerunner is that? Looks cool. Well, I'm not sure what that was in relation to. Did somebody say they were running earlier? I missed that one.
Oh, yeah. Forerunner 55 is very, very the cheapest one.
Oh, of course it was. Yeah.
I do run.
Of course.
I haven't run in a while. I will say that.
Since the London Marathon 2 weeks
ago.
I
think I ran once after the London Marathon, so I'm going to try and run.
Keep talking. I'm going to try and balance my camera. Keep talking.
Go ahead.
Jamie Alice92 said sent a £9.99 super chat and said thank you, Turn Left, for your solidarity with the trans community. We need all the support we can get right now. We really do.
Well, always, and I'm loud and fucking proud about it. By the way, like we will till the day that we bloody die say that we're standing with trans people, and I need trans people to really recognize that Turn Left is very loud and proud about that. Like you will see us standing with you at Trans Pride, at these organizations. No shame in our game, and we will. Mate, guys, I used to fucking debate these so-called gender criticals online. What was wrong with me? And then I realised they're Taz.
It's a cult. You may as well. Cult. Honestly, you may as well be talking to Scientologists. The type that Louis Theroux meets.
I can't do it. It's like speaking to a
wall. I
wall.
can't do it. I actually stopped because I found myself. It got to a stage at the height of the kind of war that they were waging, and the media were all captured, the BBC and all the newspapers, and I kept getting invited on for these 5-minute trans on trial segments.
It's awful.
And it was just 5 minutes of abuse, and I'm thinking, well, I haven't even done anything.
Literally.
Why have you been so vile?
Jamie that made the comment has also said just on that point, talking to a TERF is like talking to a flat earther. They are disingenuous, willfully ignorant cultists who have completely lost touch with reality. I think we've all got experience with that.
Can I just say, when I used to be on Hinge, I actually said, let's debate this topic, and it was to convince me that the earth is not flat. But it was to piss people off. So actually,
but it is. It's talking to. I think
it is like talking to a flat earther.
It's because you're talking to people who have got no understanding of the scientific fact.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
they're,
true.
they're using GCSE biology to try and describe something that's
Facts.
incredibly more complicated
Yeah.
than that.
Exactly. Insane. Flat earthers and turfs.
And yeah,
Um,
have you seen the pictures online? I mean, look, there are certain groups now that meet up of turfs, and they've got cardboard cutout masks of J.K. Rowling,
Yeah, it's a
with the eyes
cult.
removed, and they sit there with their checkered tablecloths, having little fancy cakes and a teapot. And I'm sorry, this is like horror film stuff.
It's insane. It's insane.
They're mad. They're insane. Yeah.
They are.
they really are. On a lighter note, Specs has sent a £5
Thanks,
super
Bex.
chat and said, we usually hang out in the voice chat of the Discord after the show. All are welcome. Join the community. Can a mod post a link, please? Yeah, if you've got a link for the Discord, please pop it in the chat for those that want to join. And Specs also gifted 5 Turn Left memberships as well. Thanks for that, Specs. We've got Yori Gibson gifting 10 Turn Left memberships. Thank you for that. Layla sent another super chat of £5 one, and said, while I'm not on the Discord anymore, I still wish Turn Left the best. I drink from my Turn Left mug, that's the merch, and have a wonderful day, everyone, both presenters and chatters.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can buy our merch. It's shop.turnleftmedia.co.uk.
Yeah.
That's where you find it. It is all just Turn Left logoed at the moment. I think that you've inspired me, India. I think we need to branch out and go for like slogans and
Definitely.
you know, something.
And listen, it's so important what you're doing. I cannot underestimate it, because we're living in a time now where these big tech bros like Elon Musk and obviously Jeff Bezos and what have you, all of the media world is shrinking. You've got a deal going on now where ITV, who I've always considered to be kind of, they haven't had an agenda. They've been kind of middle of the road. They wouldn't take a side, but they're about to be taken over by Sky News. Now, Sky News are more right wing, you know, the Rupert Murdoch pedigree. It's kind of trashy tabloid clickbait headlines. So we are living in a world where if you're a lefty or a progressive, maybe is the word, if you're a progressive person, finding news sources or places just to discuss, you know, real world conversations with other people is increasingly difficult. So, you know, kudos to you. Keep doing this.
Oh, thanks, India. Thanks for coming, honestly.
Yeah. And
voice is so
and
important.
you know what, we couldn't do it without our wonderful community, our supporters,
Yeah.
the people that watch,
Yeah.
the people that donate, and you know, we want to, as much as possible, we want to keep Turn Left, you know, as independent from outward forces as possible, and one of the ways that we do that is with the support of the people that we have, and also people like yourself, Indy, that give up your time free of charge to come and chat with us and be on the show, because you know we're not at a stage yet, as you know, where you know, we don't get paid for this, we do it all voluntary, we're not able to pay our guests, and it's really great when you know, people like yourself are happy to come on and have a chat with us as well, because you know, we know that some other outlets might pay you for your time, although to be fair, you probably have, if I may say so, you probably have a better time here with us, because you know,
definitely
a lot of the other outlets pay you for 10 minutes just to fire abuse at you, like you've said already. So.
Babes against bigots. That's
that.
actually me in India. We are the babes who are against bigots.
Wait, am I
Just
not a
saying.
babe as well? What about me?
Oh, sorry,
Honorary
Callum. Yeah,
babe.
you can join up.
Honorary
You can
babe.
join
I
our
can be an
cult.
honorary babe.
Honorary babe.
Deus Ex Ollie's gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Thank you for those, as well as a £5 super chat saying, putting on a J.K. Rowling mask is ironically very mask off.
Yeah.
And
Well, it is. Yeah, it's very clever.
Michael sent £2 as well and said, this is Michael saying, on a good note, Thatcher's still dead. Thanks for that comment,
True.
Michael.
And isn't it interesting? Did you spot that thing on social media? I think was it yesterday? So yesterday was the 38th anniversary since Section 28 was passed.
Wow.
If you don't know Section 28,
Yeah.
that was a bill passed by Margaret Thatcher that essentially said kids can't be told about gay people
Yeah.
existing, and it's wrong that people they feel they have the inalienable right to be gay, as if it's something you've got to apply for and get permission. So anyway, 38 years after that, it's the same week that these new trans apartheid laws are being passed by Labour. I mean, my God, we didn't even go there. What is going on
this
with
is what I wanted to
Labour?
unpack with you in the comments, because one of the questions I had for you was, like, what's this going to do for Labour, and do you think that they'll get the likes of JK, what's her name, Rowling, on board? Is it Rowling or Rowling?
Well, I actually think this is my opinion. Okay, so just in case anyone's listening, it is my personal opinion. J.K. Rowling is on record previously of having donated to the Labour Party. Before the trans thing started, she had made donations to Labour. Now, there was one point, probably about a year and a half or so ago, where J.K. Rowling had made some scathing comment about Labour. I think she was basically pooing her pants, thinking that Labour were going to flip and they were going to come on our side, as if they were going to do that. And on the back of it, Keir Starmer said if she wants to meet, she only has to get in touch. Now, I don't know. To me, it's not beyond the bounds of possibilities that J.K. Rowling, although she might not support Labour policy, she's made a donation. And whether she had some influence, I guess we will never know. But I think Labour, they've lost. This was an opportunity. You know, I'm sick to death of hearing Labour say, oh, we're going to start again. It's going to be a refresh and what have you. The only refresh that is ever going to save Labour, and it's potentially too late now, terminal damage has been done, would have been to go back to their core vote. And a great way of doing it, if they wanted to do that, would have been somebody like Andy Burnham to say, look, fuck the TERFs. I'm not having any of this shit anymore. You know, we champion minorities, the underdog, and that's what Labour represents. But no, Andy Burnham caved within 24 hours. So I don't see any change. And I think for progressive people, for the time being, you know, it's a choice between the Greens. If you're in England, it's just about the only choice. And if you're in Scotland or Clyde, you've got other options as well. And Northern Ireland, but England pretty shitty, really.
India, I wanted to ask you actually, because you tweeted a couple of days ago a picture of yourself outside 10 Downing Street when you went to meet Theresa May.
Oh yeah.
And you shared a really interesting anecdote of a brief conversation you had with the then Prime Minister in the toilets in Downing Street as well. And I just wondered what do you think has changed, and why do you think, and how do you think it's happened that we've gone from a situation where we've had a Conservative Prime Minister who was, you know, about to introduce self-ID and you know, really sort of solidify rights for trans people in law. How do you think we've gone from that, from a Conservative, to where we are now with a Labour government? It seems to be backwards for everything that we know and understand about the two parties.
It's mind-boggling. It's like the universe has been picked up like a snow globe and given a good shake, because this Labour government is undeniably more right-wing than Theresa May's Conservatives. And I've never voted Conservative in my life, and even Theresa May's government, you know, I would never have voted for them. But when I briefly met her in the ladies' loo, it's so funny thinking that now, you know, she struck me as just like a decent enough person. I didn't feel like she was wooden in the way that Keir Starmer is. When she spoke to me, just like it was literally a 15 or 20 second exchange, she was completely relaxed and she was fine. And the general sense of the day, when I and the other people that were attending the event, my take on it was that, you know, she was genuine about it. I don't think this is the thing about, you know, what we've talked about for the best part of an hour now. She wasn't interested
Yeah.
in questioning or getting proof or evidence of trans people. She was just saying, look, I can see you're all happy. You're fine as you are. Cool. Let's make it formal. Let's just recognize it.
And do you think that's because I've always had this theory about Theresa May that she was one of the last prime ministers that we had who genuinely believed that she was doing the right thing for the country. I disagree with her politics completely on the most part, but I feel like she was the last prime minister where she was prime minister because she actually cared about the country and she actually wanted to improve things. We just disagree on how she went about it. And I feel like now we're in a new age where our politicians they spend too much time just trying to appeal to a certain demographic of people, usually the people that shout the loudest. There's the small groups that shout the loudest on social media quite often, whether it's them trying to appeal to the you know, anti-migrant brigade that fly the flags, you know, because they've seen something on Twitter, or whether it's to, you know, trying to appeal to the gender criticals. It seems like, you know, we're now in a stage where, because a certain group of people have shouted very, very loudly on social media, that politicians go, oh, well, we need to try and appease them, rather than actually looking at what the wider public want. I mean, YouGov have done poll after poll on this, and, you know, normal people, they're not bothered. They don't want to see rights taken away from trans people. They don't care if they're sharing a bathroom with a trans person. They care about other issues. And actually, Mike's put this comment on, and I think it was meant. In. You know, I think it was meant as an attack. But I'm interested in thoughts on this, because Mike said no one gives an F about trans people. People are more concerned with the cost of living. You really do piss people off with this shit, and I think it was meant as an attack. But I thought it was really interesting. I know, Sarah, you've got to say some things about this, but actually, to a degree, I think Mike's right. People don't care. People are interested in dealing with the cost of living. People are interested in sorting out all of our problems in society. So why are our governments and the people in charge spending so much time talking about trans people? Someone else said before, J.K. Rowling talks about trans people more than trans people do.
Yeah.
Like, what is this obsession? And, you know, the reason we're talking about it, Mike, is because people are being stripped of their rights, and that's something that we care deeply about, and that's why we're gonna highlight that.
But all this, can I just say here, I'll touch on the Theresa May thing and how things have changed. All of this is down to the likes of Elon Musk, big money, algorithms, and the speed of the news cycle now compared to what it was around 2015. So back in those days, funnily enough, before we came on air, me and Sarah were just having a little chat about a dating app where Sarah had actually accidentally bumped into someone who was, let's say, right wing, and we were saying, oh no, we could never date somebody who was like overtly right wing these days. It would just be impossible. But back in around 2015, I think with conservatives, there was the possibility that you could sit down with somebody and have a chat with a conservative and everything would be fine and civil and it wouldn't be a problem. But where we are now, everything has become so driven by hate, and it's hate that is driving this, because that's what makes the money meter tick on Twitter. So if you've got a following on social media and you open an account on Twitter and you talk about, let's say, trans people and asylum seekers, you are going to earn infinitely more money than if you are talking about the cost of living, for instance. Now, in the real world, obviously it's the cost of living. There is number one priority for everybody. But in terms of the things that generate pressure via media headlines, it's the hate. So you have governments, especially weak, what I call jelly governments, Twitter governments, effectively, like Labour, they're just going to react to whatever the predominant noise is on Twitter.
Yeah.
So you're ending up with Elon Musk via his algorithms actually dictating policies in countries now.
And it's frightening. And it's like you say, it thrives on hate comments. I mean, I find on TikTok, if I post content that's me, it doesn't do anywhere near as well as if I do vox pops with people. If it's a vox pop with a left winger, it doesn't do as well as if it's a vox pop with a right winger.
Yeah.
Because it generates that if it's people talking, being nasty or saying hateful things, it brings more hateful people in. And the only time the more left-wing content does well is when all the trolls get on there, because obviously they're generating hate in the comments, and then the algorithm goes, ooh, people hate this, brilliant, let's show it to more people. But, and like you say, it's worrying that it's not just setting the news agenda, it's setting the legislative agenda as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, but also so I saw this comment and I literally took a picture of it and I was like, please, Callum, star it, because I want myself and India to respond to it. But it's this like, no one gives a fuck about trans people, quote unquote. I couldn't hear much of the conversation because I dropped out. But like, then why is the media so fucking obsessed with talking about trans people? Why are newspapers and politicians and commentators obsessing over them every single day? Every single debate that you see online is obsessing over trans people. Like, our entire primetime debates are dedicated to a tiny minority of people that are literally just trying to exist in a place that's safe. You cannot claim something is irrelevant whilst simultaneously turning it into some national moral panic. And like, yeah, you're absolutely right. People do care about the cost of living crisis, Mike. Like, people care about it. Trans people care about it too, because they also have to pay rent, believe it or not. They also have to pay for fuel, like, believe it or not. Like, they're not some different, like, sect of people that aren't impacted by austerity. All of these things intersect. But this is exactly the point. Everyone is concerned about this, and they too will stay concerned about it. Trans people did not put your rent up, Mike, by the way. They didn't privatise your utilities. They didn't deindustrialise the north. They didn't cause all of this hullabaloo up and down the country. They are not the reason why your NHS appointment is actually fucking lagging. Like, culture wars are politically useful because it's just a massive distraction. It keeps people emotionally reactive instead of actually materially conscious.
If
and
Mike was rocking up, if Mike rocked up at work tomorrow and the boss called him in and said, well, sorry, Mike, you're going to have to use this separate toilet. I know you've been here 20 years, but rules are rules. Everyone else can use it, but you can't. You're in there. And then he went to maybe his five-a-side and he said, I'm sorry, you can't play for us anymore. Rules are rules. Off you go. So your world is shrinking, Mike, if you're still there. So that is why, even though we're only 0.5% of the population, we didn't ask for that. We're not we didn't start this war. We are the victims here. If you want to people stop ramming it down your throat, as you say, it's not trans people making these stories or writing them or broadcasting them. It's anti-trans people. So you need to get in touch with the Daily Mail and tell them to shut up.
Facts. And also, you make such a great point, India. Like, it's this line about things to do with trans people piss people off. Like, what? So did things to do with, because we can reference things from history, we can learn from history. When we were looking at the civil rights movements and like things to do with black people, did that piss people off? Gay people pissed off under Section 28,
Correct.
like, or women demanding rights, piss people off. But sorry, Callum, every marginalised group in history, obviously very vulnerable, has been told consistently that their visibility is inconvenient, that it's provocative, that it's socially disruptive. But that is such a lazy fucking script. It's so lazy, Mike.
But you know where a lot of it comes from as well, though? It's fear that if that group stay marginalised, then they won't come for me. But as soon as those people fight back and then they get the rights to them, we need to find somebody else to blame. So I think a lot of people, it's like the people that talk about remigration and say that we're going to be overrun by by people of the Islamic faith, and that white people are going to be a minority. They are frightened that white people in that example will one day be treated with the same discrimination that ethnic minority groups have been treated with for years. they are frightened that, well, if people are attacking trans people, at least they're not attacking me. But as we've already pointed out multiple times, they will get to you. They're working their way through. And actually, if we allow marginalized groups to be marginalized and discriminated against, and we don't fight back, it's that famous poem from the war, isn't it? First they came from. They will come to you.
Yeah. And there are when you look at history, all those groups you've mentioned, from black people to Asian people to gay people, now it's trans people. All the themes that these people, these horrible groups and individuals throw at us, they're all the same kind of themes. You're a threat to women and children, you're invading, you're taking over, you're stealing our stuff.
Sorry to interrupt you, India, but meanwhile we've got this story that's just come out this week of 2 teenage boys who have raped multiple girls on 2 separate occasions, filmed themselves doing so, and have been let off with and avoided a prison sentence because the judge doesn't want to unnecessarily, in his words, send them to prison. And it's like, hang on a second. The real threat to women and girls, when you've got people who are actually actively hurting women and girls, and they're going, even when they're going to court, which is in 1 or 2% of cases who actually make it that
1%,
far. The judge is turning around in cases like that when you've got teenage boys who've literally filmed themselves doing this, saying, "Oh yeah, but we don't want to unnecessarily inconvenience the perpetrator." Who cares about what the victims feel and how they are, as long as the lads that did it don't go to prison. They've got to protect their future, and it's like. Do you really care about women and girls? Because you're shouting very loudly about a group of people, who aren't a threat.
They don't give a fuck. They've never given, if they gave a fuck, there would not be an epidemic of violence against women and girls in this country. There would not be the onslaught of violence happening to women. And when I say women and girls, I'm including trans women in that, by the way. I don't have to make that. I don't have to say that. People should just know that when I'm saying women and girls, trans women in that too. So why is it we're still having these lazy fucking conversations about this boogeyman after 9 p.m. comes out and they might be dressed in a dress and come into your toilet? No, it happens on trains, it happens on buses, it happens in people's homes, but no one is talking about it. No one's talking about it. Instead, they're attacking teachers, and I don't mind saying that.
If they cared about women and girls, Donald Trump wouldn't be president of America.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He's
Andrew
like
would be
a
in prison.
trafficker, a sex pest, and yet all these religious right people are falling. It's just insane. The world's lost its mind.
I'm just gonna move us on because we've still got quite a few comments I'd like to get us through. No, it's okay. Angel Vids has said, I remember when the BBC asked a gender critical outside the court, what have trans people lost as a result of this court decision? She said nothing, and the BBC reporter didn't push her on that at all.
Incredible.
I saw I think it was J.K. Rowling, actually, literally in the last 48 hours, who tweeted. You may have responded to it, India.
No, I blocked her. But,
have you? Oh, okay. Well, I think somebody had, but essentially saying the same thing, which is that trans people haven't lost any rights. All that this has done is point out that they should never have been in those spaces to begin with. I mean, that is just frankly not the case, isn't it?
Well, just to recap, this is the gender criticals trying to put spin on what has actually happened. Because if what J.K. Rowling is saying is correct, that means that in 2010, when the Equality Act was passed, way before Donald Trump, that Gordon Brown, a staunch fan of Europe, passed the world's first bathroom ban, banning trans women in Britain from toilets, from sports, from social groups, from joining the Women's Institute, from joining the Girl Guides. Did that happen?
Stupid.
And nobody noticed that this really strict bathroom ban had been passed for 15 years until that. It's preposterous. I mean, JK is a professional fantasist. That is how she earned her fortune. But I'm sorry, that is absolute spin. The answer to the question is trans people in the UK have effectively, if you follow the law as it is now, lost everything. We can't go to the loo. We can't go out with our friends. We can't do the sports that we did. If we kiss, I don't know if you're aware of this, if we kiss a cis person, without telling them at the first encounter that we're trans, we go to jail and a male prison.
So I didn't even know that, but
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes sense. How is it that trans people in a time as precarious as now should
Yeah.
then go, hey, yeah, by the way, I'm trans, not knowing what that person might do to them as a result?
Correct.
We
Because
see the violence that
I'm
happens.
so glad. See, you get it, Sarah. I mean, doing that, the reason that trans women tend not on a first date where you're literally just meeting and seeing if you're getting on, or even if it's just an encounter where it's not a date as such, you could be
Yeah.
out with a group of friends and then there's a group of guys and the two groups start to mingle and, you know, chemistry starts to happen. If you suddenly say in that situation, oh, I'm obliged under the law to tell you, just as we get to know each other, that I'm trans. You don't know what. You know, are you going to get beaten up or
Exactly.
anything could happen? So trans people aren't supposed to do that. Or if there's another scenario, and I can absolutely see this happening, and it's going to be terrible. You know, if you're out and you've had drinks, let's say it's a Christmas night out, okay, and it's got to something like midnight. You've had maybe, you know, like a few wines and a cocktail or something, and you're dancing with a guy and the guy kisses you. And because you're just in the moment, you know, you kind of join in and everything. Then the next day you might forget it. You haven't gone home with him. You've just gone home yourself and he's gone home. But somebody said to him, oh, you know, that girl you were kissing at midnight, actually, she's trans. And he thinks, what? Trans? Yeah, she's trans. And then he gets mad and he contacts the police and he says, right, I was out last night and this trans girl kissed me. She didn't tell me. The trans girl in that situation, the trans woman, goes to jail. What sort of world is that?
That's so
again,
dumb.
going
That's
back
so
to Mike,
dumb.
who's saying, why are we talking about this? These things aren't happening in your world, Mike. They don't affect you. But to the people that they do impact, obviously it's devastating.
And can we just, I'm not shaming any sort of height here, but then let's throw all the guys that say they're 5'10" when they're actually 5'8" in prison on dating apps.
Of course,
Like,
cis people are, I'm sure used to, are very honourable, but obviously cis people are prolific liars on the dating.
They are. Who hasn't? I think Kurt's put this in the chat. Who hasn't lied on a bloody CV or a job application? Like, go on. Throw me in jail. Throw me in jail. I'll put a few more months on one of my jobs. Like, come on, fucking.
Well, on the point of cis people, Michael has asked a question that I think I'd like to.
I love short kings, by the way. Just putting that out there. I don't. Height doesn't bother me.
Well, I thought I was average height, and then I found out I'm the same height as Deck from Anton Deck, which is 5'6", but he's the short one. So, Michael said to my trans brothers and sisters, given this ruling, what is the best that I can do to support as a cishet man?
Yes, good question.
I'd get a little pin badge. It doesn't have to be like massive. And that could be one thing, just to show a little bit of visibility. I think if you do see somebody who's trans being harassed by a horrible TERF, despite the law, I think you need to speak up, just as you would if somebody was stopping a black person going into a toilet. It's racism for trans people. Let's not beat about the bush. So yeah, if you see a trans person being harassed by a TERF, step in. But again, it's important to realize, because of the noise, and we just kind of programmed, because we digest all this stuff all the time through our smartphones, through our TV or computers, that this is how the world thinks. This is what's going on in the world. The actual real world, when you're in a cafe or a bar, these scenes probably aren't going to happen unless you are extremely unlucky that there is a TERF in there. And again, with the TERFs, I mean, the trans community is small. We're 0.5% of the population. Super small. I don't think that all the TERFs together in the UK could fill a small pub in Grimsby, quite honestly.
It's true.
I mean, I refer to them as the Biddy Mafia. They're basically like a bunch of Mary White houses that have been cloned and brought back to life. So you're going to be quite unlucky if you do actually encounter a TERF. There are lots of cases. There was one in the last 48 hours where anti-trans people campaigner Kelly J. Keane, she's kind of like an Aldi version, a Timu version of Marilyn Monroe. Do you know who I mean?
Yeah.
She goes on the Tommy
goes out-
Robinson marches.
She goes out under Posey Parker, doesn't
Posey
she?
Parker, and
Yeah.
she's adopted this thing now where she dresses up basically as a Union Jack flag, and you can see the grift because she's made some money on the trans grift, but obviously there's more on the anti-Muslim side, the anti-Islam side. So she's kind of hooking up with Tommy Robinson now. Anyway, her and her turfy pals went to a pub in Bournemouth. I think it's called Aruba Bar. And as soon as they went in there, the whole room, the vibe changed. It ruined everybody's night.
Yeah.
So a word was had with the management, and they'd obviously explained who Posey Parker / Kelly J. Keane is, and they kicked her out. And that is a common story, because when TERFs, it's quite amusing to me, actually, considering that they're passing all these laws to ban trans people and nobody is banning trans people. Yet when TERFs go out into the real world, people are banning TERFs.
Yeah, good. It's how it should be.
Yeah.
I saw a video actually, speaking of her, of one of her quotes, "Let Women Speak" rallies that she holds, of a woman speaking on the microphone, and Posey Parker had a hot mic moment where she was just really disgruntled by what this woman was saying. She was ranting and rambling, and she was sort of slagging her off, saying, "Oh God, we got to listen to this. She's just going on. She's got 6 pages of this nonsense. Christ, this is awful." And then she went up to her and asked her to sort of wrap things up. And I just thought, yeah, it's really interesting. You call these rallies "Let Women Speak," and when women are actually speaking, not even, I mean, we've seen it with counter protesters where she's not wanted those women to speak, but when women who are supporting your grift are there at the microphone wanting to speak, she still doesn't want to let those women speak because she's not interested in what they've got to say. It's just the hypocrisy, and you are right. It is a grift, and it's a very obvious one. Natalie said also, all trans folk and allies, 24th of June, there is another trans lobby at Westminster. Write to your MP, and if a template is needed, there is one on.
Oh yeah, I'm down for that. So you can go on, you can register, just put your name and address in, and it's all automated, and they will send a letter to your local MP. They'll work out who your local MP is, inviting the MP to bring you into Parliament to have a chat with them on that day. So I'm going to go to that. We're all going to be down there outside Parliament wanting to see our MPs to find out why they are allowing this to happen. It is unacceptable.
What day is the 24th? That's
it's
in the
the
middle of the
24th.
week.
It's a Wednesday, the 24th.
I wish I could be there.
We'll have a look at the calendar and see if we can get anyone from the team to go down as well. Yeah. In fact, that'd be cool if you're going to be there, India, as well. We can maybe, link up
That'd be
with
nice.
you if,
I wish I could be there if it wasn't for work. But yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we could go on, but it's 9:05.
I think we should probably call it.
Call it a thing.
Yeah, I've just this one
your
from
arm, India, as well.
I know.
Of course,
I've been
You're a
holding.
trooper.
just a couple of really quick ones. This one from Leo made me laugh. Leo said, "I think it should be illegal to kiss me if you don't declare that you are a milquetoast liberal first, because if I knew, I would never kiss you." One at the beginning of the show from Michael, Sarah showing the rest of Turn Left how to be on time.
Gotta be.
That's not a thing. We're always on time. Don't know what you're talking about. And yeah, loads of fantastic comments from all of you as always. Sorry for those that we've not had a chance to go through.
Yeah, apologies.
Just before we go, I'm just looking. Wow. I'm just checking the super chat. So Benj has gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Thank you for those. Ephra Wells has sent a £5 super chat and says, please check out UK government petitions site. There's one about foreign billionaire ownership of UK media. So check that one out. and Subsystem Vids has gifted 50. That's 50
Wow,
turn left
thank you.
memberships. So thank you so much for those as well.
Dreamy.
We do really appreciate your help and support, and as we said earlier, we couldn't do what we do without our wonderful community. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I will drop down and I'll let you wrap up the
Thanks
show.
so much, Callum. Really dreamy. Thank you so
Wow.
much. And also, massive, massive thank you to you, India. I don't know why we haven't done a show together before. I feel like it's
It was
criminal
a
that we've not done
pleasure.
one
It was
together.
such good fun.
Honestly, it's been such great fun. I'm very, very, very happy to have done this with you. To get your
Excellent.
wonderful
Well,
insight.
hopefully we meet up sometime. If you're
Yes.
on one of the events in London, I'll come down and we'll catch up.
100%. Have a couple glasses of wine whilst we're at it. But
Right.
no, thanks so much, India. Honestly, thank you. And thank you to all of you who have joined myself and India and Callum. India's such a wonderful guest, and I think it's been an absolute honour to have her. But yeah, again, thank you to all of you. As you guys know, we rely on small donations. So if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to tenleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link to a one-time contribution, and you also know that you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. You also know that we go live Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, and I've got my Monday slot back, thank you very much. So I'll be back next Monday. But till then, have a great week, and I'll see you guys later.